Hello, everybody. Coming to you live from my parents' house. We have episode 18 of the Changavi Show. Except this isn't really about to be an episode of the Changavi Show. It's going to be a little bit different. Um, we got 5 topics, 5 headlines for your holidays, for your holiday weekend. I was pitching it like a Macy's commercial. 5 headlines for your holiday weekend. Only available for a limited time, right before Christmas. MSRP may apply. No, okay. Excuse my riffing on that. It is currently 1:15 in the morning, and I'm recording this, but I have 5 headlines I want to talk to you about, and it just started to rain. Jesus. Never say the Lord's name in vain. But anyway, let me start from the top. We got 5 headlines to talk about in all different areas of the world so that, when you approach the family Christmas dinner table or when you spend time with your family and you're running out of topics to talk about, you can bring these up at your conversations with your family and be like, have you heard about this? Have you watched this? Are we tracking this? Is this going on? What do you guys think? So I'm here to provide you that information. I'm here to be the resource that provides you interesting conversation topics for your holiday conversations. And I want to do this real quick because I have to go to bed and I procrastinated doing this show all day. And this is the result of it. I record at 1:16 a.m. So let's get this done so we can all, go to bed and get the information that we need. And yeah, but before we get into all of that, I just wanted to say one thing really, really quickly. 2022 is near. Okay, we're a week and a half away, pretty much, from the start of 2022, uh, which is crazy to think about. That we're already at the end of 21, and now we're going into 22. Like so much stuff. Is just going through my mind. 2021 was a great year for so many reasons, and I'm so excited for the next year to come. I'm sure it'll be even better. Um, just I'm excited. I think everybody at the beginning of every year is optimistic and has a lot of hope, but then by February, just realizes that it's going to be the same life existence and rolls into a ball and cries. Anyway, uh, I just wanted to say that at the beginning of January, the next year, I'm gonna have some major announcements. I'm not quite ready to reveal what those announcements are and what they entail, but there is going to be some major news regarding the podcast. Nothing to do with the structure, so I don't want anybody to worry about these shows going away. They'll still be here. The shows will be here. I'll be doing a lot of different types of content stuff, so don't worry about any of that. But the thing that but there's a lot of things that are going to be changing around here at the Essential Question Podcast channel. Things are going to be changing. A lot of announcements are coming, so get excited. There's going to be a lot coming your way. I'm really excited for a lot of these announcements, and they've been in the works for a while now. I'm just working out the final details and when to kind of really implement all of this. It's going to be a big change all at once. So get ready, get hyped. It's about to be a lot of fun, and I hope you all are excited because it should be. It should be exciting. We'll get there though. We'll get there one step at a time. It's gonna be a bit, but we'll get there one step at a time. But we got a show to do, so let's get right into that. Okay, we got the first topic I want to talk about very, very quickly. Not very quickly, but it's one of our main headlines that we have. It's a headline that honestly no one is talking about, and that's the Ethiopian Civil War. Uh, And it's a civil war going on in a country, and literally no one in American media is talking about it. Not CNN, not MSNBC, because we're too concerned with the Omicron variant. Listen, I'm not saying that like the Omicron variant is unimportant. Of course, it's probably going to be the topic of conversation here during the holidays. People are going to be like, "Oh, well, Omicron's really spreading in San Francisco. They're shutting down a lot of stuff. A lot of NBA players are getting COVID," and we're going to talk about a little bit of COVID and the NBA and sports leagues and all that later. But we need to talk about this Ethiopian Civil War because no one is talking about this. It's literally like I would not have found out about it if I was, if I wasn't on the New York Times homepage researching for a school project when I found this article about a civil war that absolutely nobody was talking about. And boom, suddenly, all of a sudden, boom, I was just transfixed by this headline and curious to find out like what exactly is going on here with this Ethiopian Civil War. So let's get right into it. Okay, so what the hell is going on in Ethiopia? Where is Ethiopia? Ethiopia, and I'm going to break this down as fast as I can. This is an incredibly complex conflict. So I really do encourage you to do a lot of research on your own. I'm just going to give like the quick bare bones of it. Ethiopia is located at the Horn of Africa, which is essentially this air. So Africa is kind of shaped. It's difficult to describe the shape of Africa, but if you can visualize it in your head, Ethiopia is located on the right side of Africa, and it's like kind of in this weird groove area. The way Ethiopia is shaped is extremely weird, but it's bordered by Eritrea to the north and Somalia to kind of the south. But it's this weird horn of Africa. It's this enclave in the and on the right side of the country. And if you look at it on a map, it's very oddly shaped, and it's like I said, bordered by Eritrea and Somalia, and it's this own little micro region within Africa. It's really a region that, and it's actually the second most populated country in Africa. I think the first one is Egypt or South Africa. I'm not exactly sure, but it is a very important part of the country or of the continent, and has a lot to do with the continent's politics, dynamics between ethnic groups, etc., etc. And the way Ethiopia's government works is that there are different ethnic groups that actually control different regions of the nation. So the region is sort of split. So the country is sort of split into like different areas where there are ethnic groups that hold a majority stake. So like um, for example, if I were to break it down in United States terms, it would be like, okay, so if white people lived in Alabama, that would be like their region. Whereas like black people live in New York. I mean, this is all hypothetical. So that would be their region. And like Indian people lived in Illinois. So that would be their region, right? So it's kind of broken down like that. And there's no real unifying leader, and there hasn't been a unifying leader for a while in Ethiopia because it was these various ethnic groups controlling their respective regions, etc., etc. However, back in 2000, I want to say 2018, there was this guy by the name of Abiy Ahmed who, for the first time, was sort of elected as Ethiopia's national prime minister, and he was sort of this overarching leader. Ethiopia for a long time was actually under a Marxist dictatorship, so it was constantly put under one political party's rule, and it wasn't a very fair government, etc., etc. So there was a lot of stuff going on with that, but eventually democracy ended up prevailing, and now it's a part of the situation here. So way back when, I think it was 2018, this guy Abiy Ahmed was elected as prime minister, and he was part of this political group or ethnic group called the TPLF. And he distanced himself from that political group once he gained power in 2018, and that led to tension with the Tigray ethnic group, which is located in northern Ethiopia. So that becomes important later on in the story, if you're following. Okay, so essentially, a year passes, and Abiy Ahmed is actually like having tremendous success in Ethiopia. He's bringing in sweeping political reform. People in the Horn of Africa, the Horn of Africa region, absolutely loves this guy because he's actually creating peace amongst a region that has been known for a lot of war, a lot of guerrilla warfare, a lot of conflicts coming within the people. And actually, Ethiopia and Eritrea, which I said Eritrea borders Ethiopia to the north, for the first time in a matter of like 30, 40, 50 years, were at peace because Abiy Ahmed made it a point to sign a decree or a peace sort of treaty of sorts to basically say that Ethiopia and Eritrea are on good terms and won't attack each other, which is something that was unheard of for a long period of time. And so that was like a huge result that was recognized by the international community, and he won a Nobel Peace Prize for that. So 2019, Abiy Ahmed was the Nobel Peace Prize winner. This guy is, he's on top of the world. Like, you're seeing optimism take place within this region of the country, but we're talking about a civil war. So we have to get into to what happened. Obviously, COVID hit back in 2020, so a lot of stuff was delayed. Okay, but then in this this year, in the summer of this year, June of 2021, um, or sorry, last year, I apologize. Last year in 2020, in November of 2020, Abiy Ahmed had basically told Ethiopians that there would not be parliamentary elections within their respective regions. And a lot of these regions followed his order. They followed his decree, except one, the Tigray's group, the Tigray, which was a group that Abiy Ahmed was affiliated with, but distanced himself, like I said earlier. And they completely refused to go through with this. So this was back in September of 2020. The TPLF, which was the majority controlling party in Ethiopia for a long time, and the party that Abiy Ahmed rose through the political ranks in, it ended up having their parliamentary elections back in September, and they completely defied Abiy Ahmed's order. They were like, "Screw you! We're going to do whatever we want." Okay, so Abiy Ahmed's response to that, and actually remember that peace treaty I told you about earlier, right? With Abiy Ahmed and Eritrea, the neighboring country in the north. So that peace treaty basically ended up being, okay, let's get rid of the Tigrays, because this was a group that the both of them hated, because the Tigrays had caused a lot of problems within the national government of Ethiopia because they wouldn't listen due to the problems like I suggested. And Eritrea hated them because they bordered Eritrea and they would cause problems at the border, just trying to invade, all of that stuff. So it basically became a goal of trying to beat the Tigrays. And so the government initially, the Ethiopian government essentially initially had control of the situation way back in September of 2020. And they thought it would just be like, we're going to send the army there. We're just going to, and they're going to eventually surrender, right? That's what usually happens in these situations. That's what's going to happen here. That did not happen. So in June of 2021, the international media suddenly begins to realize that the rebels, the Tigrayan rebels, are pushing the Ethiopian army to the point where it's like to the point where the Ethiopian army is being kicked out of Tigray. So Tigray is becoming its own independent area. And it's getting to the point where this Tigray offense and the Tigray army is advancing towards the national capital of Addis Ababa in November of 2021. So I'm talking like literally last month, the Tigray rebels had gone from this complete underdog. The Ethiopian army was supposed to take care of business. It was supposed to be a little bit of unrest. They had the Eritrean government on their side. But all of a sudden, November of 2021, these rebels are quickly advancing towards the capital. But the Ethiopian government has been able to kind of get their shit back together, so to speak. And the Tigray rebel forces have sort of decided to retreat for a bit. And what's it called? The sort of solution, so to speak, right now is that the Tigrays are hoping for a diplomatic end where they're able to get what they want. Okay, so Tigrays and TPLF are kind of sort of the same thing. The TPLF is the political group that represents the Tigrays in the grand scheme of politics in Ethiopia. There's a whole separate lecture I could do on this whole entire thing, and I'm just trying to get through the bare bones, so bear with me if this is really confusing. Okay. But here's the problem with this whole civil war, because it may have seemed like I was like, oh, the Tigrays are the rebels and they're good guys, but they're not. The Tigrays are not good people. The TPLF has joined with like other rebel groups throughout the country of Ethiopia, and they've committed so many human rights violations. The UN's actually done investigations into Ethiopia, particularly the TPLF, and they've like noticed that the citizens are starving. I think it's like 11% of Ethiopian citizens are like food insecure. Like it's ridiculous. It's particularly those that live in Tigray, like they're starving. Kids are not getting enough food to eat. Like it's a really bad situation. And TPLF, way back when they were the head of the government, were known for like curtailing free speech and torture and all of this stuff. So these rebels who are rebelling against the Ethiopian government are not good people, so to speak. They've been doing a lot of bad stuff. You're probably thinking at this point, like, oh, I'm with the Ethiopian government then. Like they're, creating peace within the region, like that guy Ahmed Abiy, like I was telling, Abiy Ahmed that I was telling you about earlier, like, oh, like, he won a Nobel Peace Prize for creating peace within the region, all this stuff. Like, good. Like, I'm so happy. See, that, like I said earlier, like had the peace deal with Eritrea, which is the country up north, and that may have led to peace, but also it led to a full-on warfare against the Tigrays, which are the north. Which, I mean, you might be thinking right now, good, I'm glad. But here's the thing: it's the citizens of Tigray that are the ones of the Tigray region that are the ones being affected, because a lot of times these people are not associated with the politics of the Tigray region, right? The TPLF is a small majority or a small minority of the political landscape of Ethiopia. And there are a lot of citizens within the Tigray region, like I said, who have, you know, um, been struggling because of the fact that the Ethiopian government has used blockades to just block resources from entering. Citizens are struggling. They don't have jobs. There's no stable government. There's no food. There's no nothing. Like, it's awful. And the guy who won the Nobel Peace Prize back in 2019 is resorting to these horrible tactics of starving people who are his citizens. Like, let's not forget, the Tigray region is still very much a part of Ethiopia. He is starving a section of his country. He is causing blockades of his own country. And he won a Nobel Peace Prize 2 years ago. It's looking real bad for Ahmed I, right? Abiy Ahmed, sorry. I keep getting his name confused. And he has actually resorted to those same tactics that I was talking about with the TPLF earlier. He has resorted to those same exact those same exact tactics. He's curtailing free speech. He's arresting journalists. He is torturing political people within the TPLF. This is a fricked up situation. This is to the point where everybody is the bad guy. There's no good guy. He's detained Tigrays in camps. Like, it is becoming a borderline, like, can we call it a genocide at this point? I mean, I don't know. But he's detaining Tigrays into camps. And I have not done enough research where I can call this a genocide, but it sure as hell is looking like he is really attacking this ethnic group and totally segregating a part of his country because of the fact that, that obviously, like, they've done bad shit. Okay, no one is the Tigrays have done bad shit. No one is saying that they haven't. But to take a part of your country and just completely continue to blockade them and not provide them with resources and all of this stuff is awful. That the Tigrays are also awful. So there's really no kind of middle ground. But obviously, the fact that he is detaining these Tigrays in camps and all of that stuff is completely effed up. And we can all agree on that. Like, that's not that's not something where I'm like, oh, like, that's, like, I can't agree. Like, I very much agree. I very much agree that both sides are bad. And that's the Ethiopian Civil War that's been going on for the last year. It's an issue that continues to go on. It's a fucked up situation on all fronts because everybody is horrible. And, I just hope that I don't even know if there's an accurate solution to this problem. I don't think so, because I think no matter what happens, like, it's going to be an effed up government. I mean, you're talking about Abiy Ahmed, who, like, won a peace prize 2 years ago, but is, all of a sudden detaining innocent citizens of his country that live in a region into camps and, committing human rights violations on the daily, and I get, like, the TPLF were, like, terrible people, but to blockade a section of your country because there's a small minority of citizens within that may be affiliated with this terrible group of sorts that have been declared a terror group in Ethiopia. Like, is that right? Is that right? Like, no, it's not. And, but the thing is, like, the TPLF is not right either. And they're within that region of Tigray, and they're really, causing a lot of struggles for the Ethiopian government to unite the country together. And there's a whole lot more of the situation. And I might have done a really bad job of explaining it. I'm sorry, and I apologize if it was very confusing to follow. But this is an incredibly complicated issue with a lot at stake. And I really do encourage all of you to do more research. But here's the thing is, like, no one in the international media is even bothering to cover this. I had to look for New York Times articles. Shout out to the East African correspondents of the New York Times, because they're doing the real journalism here. This is an issue that is very important to a particular region of the world. To the Horn of Africa, which, like I said earlier, Ethiopia is the second most populous country in Africa. Um, and Africa is a huge continent. And whether you like it or not, on the world scape of things, they have a big say because a lot of millions and millions of people live in Africa. And the international media doesn't seem to care. They don't give an F about that, but they're reporting, shit about whatever it is, happened in America because that's all the news cares about these days is America, 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 America. And it's probably because we live in the US. But I think it's time that international news headlines get some attention because they're just as important on the world scape of things. And we start caring a little bit more about the world. But I think this is something you could talk about with your families. It's like there's a civil war happening in Ethiopia. Like we can't do anything about it, but like I think it's good to know and like good to educate people on. So I just thought it would be a good idea to bring that up today. As we head into the holidays, as we head into the holidays and really, take some time to appreciate who we're thankful for, and and we live in America where everything is so, everything is given to us. We don't have to worry about war for the most part. We don't have to worry about invasions. We don't have to worry about a civil war. Obviously there are a lot of problems within our country, but there are not civil wars happening. And we are blessed that we can wake up in the morning and not worry about armed occupation being able to take place. And for the most part, not worry about like having famines and having food like not available to us because it's being blockaded to our specific part of the country. So definitely something to just keep in mind and have some perspective because it's really an interesting thing. And we went a long time with the Ethiopian Civil War, but it's a really complicated issue. And I think the second headline I want to get into really quick is about COVID, which is the leading headline here in America. Obviously, the Omicron variant has been on the minds of many. And this is a variant that has seemingly spread actually way more than Delta or other variants of the virus in general. Because with Delta, it felt like Delta had its like, whoa, it's Delta. And then, like, a couple weeks passed and we realized that the vaccinations, and if you were vaccinated, it would protect you immensely against the variant of Delta, and that was great. So it became kind of a non-issue of sorts for those who were vaccinated. But now this Omicron variant is being seen as a variant which is very dangerous, particularly if you do not have the booster shot. And it's this whole debate. But I think like COVID right now, particularly with I don't know if it's necessarily the Omicron variant that's affecting sports leagues, but I do think to a certain extent that it is. The NFL and the NBA right now are being hit with COVID harder than any other industry that I can tell, and it's pretty crazy how hard it's been. It's been hit hard. The I can name several rosters in the NBA right now that have been ravaged by COVID, where there's like 8, 9 players in health and safety protocols. I feel like every time I open up Twitter or Instagram, it's a new athlete who's in health and safety protocols. Marquee stars, guys who are faces of the league, are now suddenly, not immune to this. Like it's like everybody's going into the protocols. It's not just these role players, people who don't matter. And like you're probably like, and just like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why are you just talking about like role players and like saying they don't matter? Like, whether you like it or not, the NBA is a business and it's based around its biggest stars. And if the biggest stars are in health and safety protocols, this league is more likely than not to shut down. It's more than likely or not to take a leave. But everyone is wondering, right? Are we going to get another NBA bubble? Are we going to get an NFL playoff bubble? And I think the answer is honestly no. It didn't work out. It barely worked out last time. It barely worked out. The bubble did not it lost the NBA a ton of money, more money than it gained, really. I think it was a losing investment. The bubble was, not popular with the players. There were so many rules they couldn't move. Like it was, it was depressing. I mean, you hear guys like Paul George talk about like the mental health effects that the bubble had on their, on not being near their families and not being able to really see people that they love and care about and all of that stuff. And I don't think that the bubble is going to happen. I think athletes would be vocally against the bubble in both sports. If a bubble alternative was brought up, I don't even think it's going to get to that point. Here's what I do think can happen, though. I think protocols will tighten 100%. I think they already are starting to tighten. I think players are, you know, um, kind of like with the facility, like with testing and all that. I think the protocols are going to tighten a little bit. And I think that we potentially, if this could get really bad, could see players or could see fans maybe at 50% capacity in the playoffs and for the NFL, and then maybe for the NBA 50% for a portion here of the regular season or something. I don't necessarily know though how it's all going to work out, but this is it's pretty crazy. It's interesting that it's happening now in December because this is like right around the time where the NBA is becoming like the shit, and the NFL is wrapping up its regular season and heading towards the postseason and the Super Bowl chase and run and all that stuff. So this is like January, February, March is like right around the time where the sporting world is at its best when it in terms of like the NBA is heading into the end game of their regular season, the NFL is heading into the playoffs. Like it's a big time to be a sports fan. And so I don't know what exactly they're going to do because the NBA and the NFL both have lost so much money when it's come to sports and when it's come to or not when it's come to sports, but when it's come to their when it's come to COVID and the fact that they haven't been able to put fans' butts in the seats, they haven't been able to sell those concessions, they haven't been able to sell $15 beers, right? They haven't been able to do a lot of things in regards to having the merch, in regards to having money in their pockets. And like everybody was promised, like, oh, this is the year where like fans are going to be able to come back, and like suddenly you're seeing stadiums filled again, and like all that stuff. And could fans be restricted? Could it be a 50% capacity through the playoffs? I could see it happening, but only if this gets like worse than it already is. I think like right now this is like manageable, as fucked up as that sounds, because like, and I also like want to bring this up is like the health and safety protocols for both the NBA and the NFL are so vague. It really means that like it doesn't even mean you've tested positive for COVID. It means that like you have either been exposed to someone, a close contact who has tested positive for COVID, or you've tested positive for COVID, or like someone in your like position group, if you're in the NFL, has tested positive for COVID, and you're deemed a close contact, and so you are in health and safety protocols. Like it's an extremely vague term that doesn't necessarily provide you any context. So a lot of people, a lot of these stars, the NBA stars and the NFL stars that are in health and safety protocols are often like not, maybe don't even have COVID. Maybe they are just close contacts. Maybe they are just a part of something else, right? Like, so it's a very complicated situation, particularly with, you know, who has COVID, who doesn't have COVID, all of that stuff. So, you know, uh, we'll we'll kind of see how the leagues. It's going to be interesting to see how the leagues pursue with this. I haven't heard anything from anybody that's saying like we're going to put like a suspension or whatever on the season. I don't think that they will. I think very worst case scenario is maybe the NBA or the NFL puts a week and a half pause on the season, just freezes the season for like 2 weeks, and then kind of reevaluates and goes from there. I think that's what we're going to end up seeing here. Maybe worst case scenario, if it gets to the point where cases are just going through the roof, you're getting, positive COVID tests every day. Like, yeah, then at that point, you may be, looking at a couple week pause, post holidays, just to get everything back on track, and then, hop right back into the into the season from there. So I think that's worst case scenario. Um, would not be like surprised if it happened. I think particularly with the NFL, if they wrap up their regular season, they put a 2.5 week pause, make sure everybody's good with COVID. If that means if cases like rise hella, and it becomes like a huge issue across the league, then I could totally see the NFL putting in like a 2.5 week pause between the regular season and the playoffs, make sure all the teams are okay, and then proceed with what they have going on. But I think with sports leagues and Omicron, this is going to be something that just continues to develop. And we can't stop life for now. I know the UC system has gone online and the CSU system is requiring the booster shot. I think they have also maybe gone online for a couple of weeks to start the quarter. So you're starting to see it happen in a couple of industries. They're, trying to get ahead of this whole thing. But I think the reality is that COVID is going to become like the flu, and there's just going to be new variants of it every year. And some are going to, obviously it's not like the flu in that like the symptoms are worse and it has like a potentially more dangerous impact and all this stuff. But I think it's becoming like the flu in that it's just going to continue to be an issue in our lives. And we're just going to have to look to take the preventative measures necessary and still be able to live our lives. That's where we're at, and I think that's where we're going to have to continue to go from here. So interesting stuff, but nonetheless very interesting. I want to transition to talking about my third headline of the day. More of a pop culture thing, but just wanted to get into this real quick. This was made during the peak of COVID-19 when we knew absolutely nothing of what was going on with this pandemic. And I want to talk about Bo Burnham's Inside for a second. I got the opportunity to watch this stand-up special experience sort of thing for the first time last night and tonight. So I kind of watched it over 2 days, sorry. And like the reviews, obviously, this came out in May of this year. People were saying it was incredible. It was amazing. It's the best thing that they've seen, in a while with stand-up. It's fresh. It's art. I have no, what's it called? I have no qualms about saying that this is art. It is absolutely art, but it is undescribable. It really is. I think I want to make that point very clear. I hope it hits home that this piece is undescribable if you don't watch it. Someone asked me like, I'm not. If someone asked me like, "What have you been watching recently?" I was like, "Oh, I watched Bo Burnham's Inside." They're like, "What's it about?" I'd be like, "Yeah, that's something you're gonna have to experience on your own." This is something that I was confused by at times. I was laughing at times. I was introspective. I felt a roller coaster of emotions through the 88-minute ride that is this stand up special. Stand up special in air quotes, because that's what he calls it personally. And it's not everyone's cup of tea. Bo Burnham's style, for those of you that don't know and aren't familiar, is that of like comedy music, where he's sort of singing songs to the viewer, and they're about various themes and topics, and he's singing a lot of, and it's singing like songs, and it's through music and all of this stuff. So if you're not into music and musicals and that type of vibe, like you're not gonna like this. It's a very unique style of stand up. And not a lot of people will. And I feel like this isn't everybody's cup of tea, and it is extremely random and all over the place. And it's, but if you're interested in like ADHD, random thoughts all over the place type comedy, where and you're interested in kind of the ways that art can be used to push conversations forward, then watch this, because this will rock your mind, because it is interesting. And if you're open to new experiences, watch this. I can't promise you're gonna like it, but watch it. He talks about like in terms of themes, like I felt like he really touched on everything. It is very musically based, which was something that was very off-putting, I feel like, at first, because I am not someone who really loves the music and all the singing and all that stuff. But as I kind of like went through it, it grew on me a little bit, and it flowed really nicely, and I felt like everything, even though it's random and ADHD and all over the place, really fit nicely, kind of like a stream of consciousness. It felt like I was in his mind, and I was just hearing him think for an hour and a half or however long it was, and it was very strange. But it's really like the whole special kind of, or like this whole show special, whatever, really revolves around like all the places your mind goes during a situation like the pandemic without ever mentioning the pandemic. I think he mentions the pandemic once at the beginning of the special, and that's it. And it's really about this guy who's stuck inside. That's, and inside is kind of this metaphor for, either inside your head or inside the room, which he literally, films it all. Bo Burnham is the only person that filmed this entire special. He created it, he wrote it, he did everything, he directed it, all of it. He was a one-man crew and he filmed it inside this one building. And it was, in his guest house in LA. So it was very interesting to kind of, get the perspective on that. And I feel like this is something I'm going to have to come back to because I really don't fully understand what I saw, but I really do feel like it was one of the best depictions that I'd seen of someone's mind during the pandemic. It just went everywhere and it just covered a lot of thoughts, from lighthearted to extremely serious. And I think it's great because good art does that. Good art can make you think, while also not, while also being thought provoking and threatening. And I really did appreciate it, from that. And this whole special kind of feels like a movie, but it's not a movie, but it's not a special. So like it's really hard to be able to classify what exactly the inside is, as anything. And so uh it's I find myself at a lack of, being able to provide the appropriate verbiage to describe what inside is. But all I can say is that watch it. If you're open-minded and you're interested and you go in with an open mind and not really expect anything, I think you're going to get a lot out of this. If you're someone who's into art and into pushing boundaries and into pushing where a story can go and where a narrative can be pushed, watch Inside because I feel like you're going to love it. If you're a creator, if you're a filmmaker, if you're an aspiring anything, you're going to fucking love this. It's so cool. Um, it and it's one of the strangest things I've ever seen, which is why I really cannot come to the words to really describe what I saw. But all I can say is I highly recommend it. And everyone should watch it. I don't really have an opinion on it because I don't know whether it was good or not. It's just it's weird to describe. Like I'm recommending it and I'm saying I highly recommend watching this, but you should watch it. Like I feel like it's a very it's a must watch in a lot of ways, but also like you may not like it, which is weird. And I can't say it was good. I can't even bring myself to sort of describe what I saw because it was so strange and so weird. I've never seen anything like it. So definitely go check it out. It's totally worth it. And we're 3 topics in, right here. So I'm tired. It's 1:53, but I gotta get this done. But anyway, go watch Boom. That was a weird rant. I'm sorry. I'm very tired. Um, but go watch Bo Burnham's Inside. This is fantastic. This whole thing, I can't, again, like I said, it's very hard for me to describe what I saw, but I can tell you that it was totally worth it and you should see it. Yeah, that's what I'll say about Bo Burnham's Inside. It's really good. Okay. To go from Bo Burnham's Inside, let's go into crypto. The subject absolutely everybody wants to talk about. Right. And I want to do this. I want to do this real quick because this is just an incomplete thought that I had, but also something I think that people are really going to be talking about at holiday dinner tables. I feel like a lot of people are going to be talking about crypto, right? Because I was reading this article in the New York Times that a lot of top company leaders are leaving their cushy tech jobs at Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, wherever, for these crypto startup positions. And I was looking at like why are people doing this? Why are people leaving Meta and all of these great tech companies, where they have all the benefits in the world for crypto? And what really just like struck my head and my brain, which just boom was super interesting, was that crypto is essentially creating a decentralized version of the internet where all of a sudden, like, and the way I broke this down in my head, I want to kind of like provide this context to you. My dad is an engineer, okay? And he's worked in Silicon Valley for 30 years. When my dad started in Silicon Valley way back in 1991, 1992, they were building the internet. The internet had not been built yet. My dad built I'm not going to say my dad was like the founding of the internet. My dad did not find the internet, but my dad was one of the first engineers working in Silicon Valley when things really started to pop off during the dot-com boom, right? And he saw the dot-com craze happen in the Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. And what my dad helped build the internet in a lot of ways. He helped build this new technological world that we see today of websites and the dot-com craze and all of these things, and helped sort of contribute to this idea of creating an open forum in all quotes of social media and all of this stuff. So my dad basically created the foundation of the internet and of the online world that we see today. I feel like cryptocurrency is the biggest fuck you to my dad's work. And I mean that in the most positive way, because my dad created the internet, and this generation is saying, nah, the internet is not fair. The internet is this, and we need to decentralize it and create a network where things are, things are fair and things are more equal, and they're not controlled by Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos. And crypto is sort of the fuck you to what my dad did in the 90s. It's a fuck you to the 1990s and the dot-com craze, in my opinion. That's what crypto is. And I don't even fully trust cryptocurrency. I really don't. I don't understand the technology behind it. Blockchain, all of these things are, beyond my comprehension. But I understand the trend and I see where it's going. My dad created the internet. Crypto is destroying the internet and building a new one. And that's what is interesting about this whole situation. And I got to go quickly because my computer is dying, and it always does this, dude. Fuck. But it's interesting to see different phases of the Silicon Valley. I'm interested in trends. I'm someone who is interested in how the technology trends. I'm not someone who knows the technology, who knows the code, who's going to tell you to invest in Shiba Inu and Catcoin and Dogecoin and whatever the hell, cryptocurrency is trending now. But I'm someone who can tell you that cryptocurrency is building a new internet. And I really do believe that it's building a new future, and the metaverse is going to be the foundation and critical to the development of crypto and this new internet, because seeing what the metaverse is, and if it's a more fair society, for fair online society than the internet is today, well, I think that's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see if the internet becomes more democratized, right? Will it? Will it not? Is it going to continue to be, ruled by these technological geniuses, these white billionaires who continue to rule the world? Let's see. Let's see what 2021's version of the decentralized internet provides. And I know that was a rant on my technology, but whatever. Okay, last topic, and I promise I'm gonna put this to bed. Is Christianity out of style? Okay, and this was something interesting I was thinking about recently, because the holidays, as great as they are based around one religion, right? In America, in particular, right? Because, well, I mean, you tell me, you're like, okay, Christianity is the majority religion. But according to PEW research, Christianity, in terms of people who practice it, has continued to drop by 20% on an average of by an average of 20% over like a 20-year period. So like 1990, 82, it was like in 1980, 82% of people loved Christianity. And then in 1990, like 71% of people practiced Christianity who were surveyed. And then now it's like 58%, and it continues to drop. And Christianity and religion, whether you like it or not, is starting to dip out of the culture. And we still celebrate all these white holidays, right? Christmas, Easter Sunday, Good Friday. All of these holidays are looked at in American culture, and we have days off for this stuff. Like, these are the ones that are like, we get off. Like, we get holidays, we, celebrate 4th of July, Labor Day, all of these things, right? It's a very American thing. But the problem that I think we're running into is that America is becoming a majority minority country. In 2040, there's not going to be enough, there's going to be way more minorities than you ever think in this country. And it's probably going to be a Hispanic/Black dominated country by 2040. Right? White people are no longer going to be the majority religion. The race. But what does that have to do with religion? Will Christianity be the majority religion? I think so. I mean, I think that's changing very slowly. I think Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, all of these religions are entering this country's borders and it's changing. All of these holidays, all of a sudden, there are people at work who don't even celebrate Christmas. There's a huge majority of Silicon Valley that probably doesn't even celebrate Christmas or, any of the Christian holidays, Easter, whatever the hell. Right? And that's kind of crazy. Are we going to get more holidays off? Are we going to get Diwali off? There was a bill that was put into Congress this year about getting Diwali off potentially on making Diwali a federal holiday. Juneteenth was just made a federal holiday this year, 2021, right? Is that going to lead to a whole host of religions and cultures being able to have holidays? Is Chinese New Year going to become a holiday? I don't know. It's interesting. Religion is super complicated, right? And I'm not here to judge you on what religion you should practice or if you should be spiritual or if you should, subscribe to Christianity or Hinduism or Buddhism, whatever the hell. I don't care. But all I can say is this, is Christianity and religions in general are going out of style. And or Christianity in general is going out of style because there is a whole host of other religions that are kind of coming into this country's borders. It's been happening since, immigration laws were, relaxed to an extent and more people were allowed to enter the borders of the United States. I feel like at a certain point where Christianity is going to end. So that's interesting. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening to my 5 headlines. My computer's at 1%, so I'm finished. Like and subscribe to this channel. And big announcement coming in 2022. But those were my 5 headlines for the holidays. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you, and I will be back for more next week. Peace. Have a great day, great holiday, and everything else in between. I love y'all, and I just want to say those are my 5 headlines. And I know they were rushed, but that's what I have to say. Thank you. And I'll see y'all. Bye.